Hechamnaika 1. Hechamanaika. Many people were bringing soil under the glow of torches, covering a temple with it. They had already buried a large part of the temple, and only the pinnacle of the Gopuram was still visible. To hide even that, they hurriedly brought and dumped more soil. Addressing all those working, 60-year-old Shiva Ramaya urged, "Work faster. Those wicked people should not see even a trace of this temple. Hurry up." After a while, even the pinnacle of the temple's Gopuram was covered with soil. The temple's remnants now resembled just another sandbank along the river bank. Shiva Ramaya, who had been encouraging everyone until then, collapsed near the mound of soil he had helped create. Those around him gathered in concern. One person ran to fetch water in a pot, sprinkling it on Shiva Ramaya's face to revive him. "How can you lose heart like this, you who always encouraged everyone?" someone said, seating Shiva Ramaya on the ground and resting their hand on his back. Shiva Ramaya, who had maintained his dignity until then, was now in tears. Rising, he knelt near the mound of soil and, patting it with his palms, wept bitterly. "For generations, my family has protected this temple. What sin have I committed in this life to suffer the misfortune of burying this temple of Shiva, where daily pujas were performed?" A man behind Shiva Ramaya consoled him, "Don't worry, sir. This is just like an eclipse. It will only last until our country's commander-in-chief returns. Once he does, he will drive away these wicked people and restore the temple to its former glory. Be brave." Shiva Ramaya stood up, swaying slightly, and said, "That one ray of hope is the only thing keeping me alive. Otherwise, I would have been buried alongside this temple. Sir, it's not safe to stay here for too long. If those wicked people find out about the temple, they'll remove the soil and destroy it. We must leave this place quickly," urged a few people. Moved by their plea, Shiva Ramaya and the others, with heavy hearts, wept over the temple's fate as they made their way toward the nearby village. They reached the village and sat under the large banyan tree in the village square. While discussing their plight, the cavalry of the Muslim army surrounded the village. As soon as they heard the horses neighing, Shiva Ramaya shouted, "Attack on them." When the villagers heard the news, they armed themselves with whatever they could find and rose up against the invaders. Despite their valiant resistance, the Muslim army was too large and overpowered the village in a short-lived battle. Many villagers perished, and the survivors were taken captive. By dawn, the village was in ruins. The captives, including the wounded, women, and children, were bound and made to kneel at the village square. Shiva Ramaya, barely alive and covered in blood, was tied to a banyan tree. A burly commander, surrounded by his soldiers, climbed onto the platform in the square. The commander, surveying the captives, declared, "Why must you all die for a mere stone? Tell me where it is, and I will spare your lives and destroy the stone alone." Shiva Ramaya, too weak to lift his head, muttered, "And if not?" Enraged, the commander slapped Shiva Ramaya and demanded, "If you do not show me the temple, I will kill you all and destroy the temple, even if I have to dig it up." Shiva Ramaya replied, "You have dishonored our women, plundered our wealth, and killed our kin. What more can you do to us? Kill us. At least the temple will remain safe, even if it is buried underground. It is better than being destroyed by your hands." The commander, further infuriated, stepped down and grabbed a young boy by the neck. Pointing to the captives, he threatened, "Why must so many die for a single stone? Tell me where the temple is hidden, and I will free everyone here." The boy remained silent. Angered, the commander began to strangle the boy, but the child endured the pain without a word. Shiva Ramaya, seeing the boy's suffering, declared, "Even if you kill everyone here, You will never learn the temple's secret. Enraged, the commander lifted the boy and flung him against the platform, killing him instantly. The villagers, who had been sitting silently until then, suddenly rose up, shouting and trying to rush towards the tyrant. But he pulled out a large sword from his waist and, advancing forward, began to slash and kill those who came towards him. Don't let a single person here live. Kill them all, he ordered his followers. They joined in and began killing those present. Within moments, the entire area became like a mound of corpses after a battle. The only one left was Shivramaya. As the tyrant climbed back onto the platform and approached Shivramaya, Shivramaya was quietly reciting a verse from the Bhagavad Gita for the protection of the righteous. The tyrant came before him and said, "What's wrong with you? Are you going crazy before dying? You're mumbling something." Shivramaya smiled and replied, "This is not crazy mumbling. I am recalling the words of our God, who said that in every age, He is born to establish righteousness when adharma increases." Hearing this, the tyrant laughed loudly and, stopping, said, "Your God doesn't exist, it's just a stone. You're killing so many people, and where is your God now? If he comes, let him come. I will kill him too and bury him along with your temple." Shivramaya, despite all the sorrow, smiled and said, "My God doesn't need to be reborn to kill you. Your death has already set out for you in Hampi. Your sins have ripened. Our Hekchamanayaka will come. He will see your end. Still, you are fortunate to die at the hands of our God. No, your death will be very lowly. Just count the days for that, it is not far from you." Angered by this, the tyrant said, "Death for me, Malik Kafir, who was born to destroy the infidels. The Hekchamanayaka? Who is he? Instead of him coming here, I will go there and destroy him and the city of Hampi where he lives." But Qasim, who was behind him, arrogantly said, "Why do you need to go for such a small task? I am enough. Send me with some soldiers and I will do as you say. You underestimate the Hekchamanayaka. He is death for all of you. When death comes, one should run away, not go forward. Anyway, if death is written for all of you in Hampi, what can anyone do? Go to the city of Hampi and seek your deaths," Shivramaya said with a laugh. Enraged, Malik Kafir slashed Shivramaya with his sword. The sword cut through the ropes that bound Shivramaya, causing him to fall to the ground and die with a small smile. Seeing him dead, Malik Kafir calmed down a bit and said, "Qasim, take as many soldiers as you need and tell me within 20 days that the city of Hampi has been razed to the ground. Otherwise, you will be sentenced to death. Be careful." Qasim nodded in agreement. Malik Kafir, still a bit irritated, looked up at the sky and shouted, "Death for me, Hekchamanayaka? I will see. I will see his end too. How he will escape from me, I will see." Ramakrishna woke up with a start. He pushed his long hair back with his fingers, got up from the bed, stepped out of the tent, stretched lazily, and looked up at the sky. It wasn't completely dawn yet. The sky was still tinged with red. Chaitanya, who was already sitting by the bonfire to keep warm, asked, "What is it, brother? Did you have the same dream again?" Ramakrishna took a deep breath and sat down by the fire as well. "Yes, brother, I had the same dream again today," he said. Chaitanya laughed and replied, "Look, ever since we came here to research this temple that was buried under the mud long ago, this dream seems to have been bothering you, right?" Ramakrishna nodded in agreement. "Then at least today, tell me the name of your dream hero, whatever it is." Chaitanya hesitated, unable to remember the name. When Ramakrishna hinted the Hechmanaika, Chaitanya remembered and shouted, laughing a little more mockingly, "Did he appear to you in a dream again today?" Ramakrishna shook his head, meaning no. "Anyway, why are you taking this dream so seriously, boss? It's just a dream. Let it go, bro," Chaitanya said, placing his hand on Ramakrishna's shoulder. Looking at Chaitanya, Ramakrishna said, "No, bro. For some reason, I've been having this dream almost every day since I came here. I feel that this dream has some connection to this place." He stood up and looked at the temple that was still partially buried in the mud. Thinking it was futile, Chaitanya tried to change the topic and asked, "What's special today?" "Oh, what is there?" "Just the same as always. When the workers come, we'll have them carefully remove the mud from the temple," Ramakrishna replied, and Chaitanya was surprised by his answer. "Boss, when I say special, it's not always about these excavations or history. Look at the outside world too. There are special things happening out there as well," he said jokingly. Ramakrishna laughed too and said, "Just ask directly what you want to say, Chaitanya." The two of them walked towards the temple. "Is there anything else, bro? Have you ever been in love with anyone?" Chaitanya asked curiously. Ramakrishna, trying to recall the past, said, "Yes, back in my college days, I was fond of a girl." "And then?" Chaitanya asked with increased interest, widening his eyes and looking at Ramakrishna's face. Without looking at Chaitanya, Ramakrishna continued to gaze at the sculptures in the temple and said, "Oh, nothing much. I completed my studies before I could tell her how I felt. She got married too." Chaitanya, disappointed, asked, "Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you tell her?" Ramakrishna, wiping dust off a sculpture with his hand, explained, "I was a bit shy about talking to girls, so that's how it happened." To which Chaitanya asked, "Is that it? You're speaking so casually about it. Didn't it bother you that it happened like that?" Ramakrishna placed his hand on Chaitanya's shoulder and said, "God granted me the boon of forgetfulness. I was sad for a while after she got married. After that, I forgot. If I have work, I forget any sorrows." He then moved to examine another sculpture, with Chaitanya following behind. They spent some more time talking about various things while exploring the partially excavated temple. By then, it was getting quite bright. The workers who came daily to remove the mud from the temple arrived again that day. As soon as they arrived, Ramakrishna gave them some instructions on how to remove the mud from the sculptures without damaging them. The workers began their tasks according to his instructions. Observing their work, Ramakrishna took a brush and started gently cleaning the walls with sculptures on the other side where the mud had already been removed. By afternoon, the combined effort of the workers revealed inscriptions on one of the walls. Since Ramakrishna had asked to be notified if anything like that was found, one of the workers came to him and reported it. Ramakrishna, pleased, took his brush and walked towards the wall. By then, Chaitanya was already cleaning the inscription on the wall. Ramakrishna joined him, and together they cleaned the inscription thoroughly. Afterward, they both started reading the ancient inscription, letter by letter. Although it was a Telugu inscription carved on a granite stone, it was difficult to read. Posted by Sri Krishna at.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome content. See you next time.